Before I start this video, it probably will have a title that is something like Why the Bulls Must Draft Michael Porter, but this video is also about what the Bulls must do this offseason. So, here we are. The tank didn't go quite as well as Bulls fans, including myself, had hoped. But the Bulls now have the 6th best odds in the draft, and I am of the opinion that the Bulls should draft Michael Porter Jr. with the 6th pick, assuming that the Bulls don't move up or down in the draft. Now, going into the 2017-18 season, no one would have thought that MPJ would possibly fall to 6th. But this season, in college, Porter had a back injury that kept him out for nearly the entire season. When he finally got back to play, it was not pretty. He only played 3 games in college, and they were tournament games. In those 3 games, he played 17 minutes a game, averaging 10 points, 6.7 rebounds, and 1 steal, shooting 33% from the field and 30% from 3. Rough numbers. But you have to consider that these were his first 3 college games, and he was coming off of a nearly season-ending injury. But as long as his injury isn't a severe one, his high school performance speaks for itself. He was a 5-star recruit who averaged 37 points, 14.3 rebounds, and 2.6 assists, shooting 53% from the field and 70% from 3, though that was on 1.3 attempts per game, in his senior year of high school. Those numbers are insane. If he caps out at 20 points per game in the NBA, that's still pretty damn worthy of the 6th pick. Now, even though MPJ had a bad injury, he's still projected in the top 5 on a good amount of mock drafts. But there is a key reason that I believe that Michael Porter Jr. will be available at number 6. And that reason is, Michael Porter Jr. wants to be a Bull. On his Instagram, he has posted constant photos in Bulls gear, which I know isn't much, as players in the NBA have been seen wearing opposing teams' merch before, but he also has gone to Bulls games and he trains in Chicago. He also got his hair cut by a barber who is associated with a lot of Bulls players. Most NBA players or future NBA players tend to train in Los Angeles, but Michael Porter Jr. chooses Chicago. He also follows Zach LaVine on Instagram, which isn't that huge of a deal. LaVine is a fairly well-known player, but MPJ, who only follows 69 people, also just recently followed Antonio Blakeney, a much less known player who spent most of his season playing for the Windy City Bulls. Only played a few games for the Chicago Bulls. So Michael Porter Jr. is clearly a Bulls fan, or at the very least is looking at all the teams that might potentially pick him, and he sees Chicago as the best fit, which I would say is true. Chicago is a great fit, but we will get into that in a second. Why would MPJ wanting to be a Bull matter? Well, believe it or not, it really can matter. The reason Kobe Bryant ended up being traded to the Lakers was because after the Hornets drafted him, he threatened to play overseas because he really did not want to be a Hornet. And when Lonzo Ball headed into the 2017 NBA draft, and I wouldn't be surprised if Porter did this, didn't give the Sixers his medical records and never met with the Sixers for a workout. Lonzo, who wanted to be picked 2nd overall by the Lakers, did not want to be taken by the Sixers. Though it seemed fairly obvious that the Sixers would take Fultz, he did not provide records necessary for the Sixers to even have a chance at drafting him. Now, teams can still draft a player despite their records not being in hand, though that rarely happens. But if a player does what Lonzo did, which is make it pretty obvious that he wants to be on the Lakers, it's unlikely that a team takes a player that clearly wants to be somewhere else. And while it hasn't been as blatant, MPJ has made it fairly clear that he wants to be a Bull. Now let's talk about what I previously mentioned, Porter's fit with this roster. To describe his fit, we must first talk about his game. MPJ is a 6'10" small forward with a lot of guard and isolation abilities. His ball handling is very good, his mid-range pull-up is fantastic. Because of his length and athleticism and height, he dunks on a very regular basis, and overall his ability to create space for a shot or even make a shot without the space is incredible. MPJ is your typical tough shot maker, and one of the few rules in basketball that hasn't changed over many generations is that you need a guy that can make a really tough shot or force offense, because sometimes the shot clock's winding down and you got nothing better to find. Going down the list of the last 20 championship teams, the Warriors had Curry and Durant who could make tough shots. Cavs had LeBron and Kyrie. Warriors, Curry. Spurs, well, the Spurs are an exception because It's the Spurs. Heat, LeBron, Wade, and Bosh. Heat, again LeBron, Wade, and Bosh. Mavs, Dirk. Lakers, Kobe, Pau, Gasol. Lakers, Kobe, Pau. Celtics, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen. Spurs, Tim Duncan, Tony Parker. Heat, Dwayne Wade, Shaq. Spurs, Duncan. Pistons, again an exception, though Chauncey Billups and Rip Hamilton had their moments. Spurs, Duncan. Lakers, Kobe, Shaq. Lakers, Kobe, Shaq. Lakers, Kobe, Shaq. Spurs, Duncan and David Robinson. Bulls, Jordan. Having a tough shot maker is damn near essential for creating a contender, and that is why Porter is a good fit on this roster. While Markkanen and Levine, or even Chris Dunn at times, can make really tough shots, Porter will no doubt be the best of the four. As for how MPJ will fit overall, Dunn needs to become a better shooter for that to fit really well, but besides for that, Porter could function on this team essentially how Kevin Durant fit with the Thunder, in that I'd say that Durant handled the ball maybe 30% of the time on offense in his time in OKC. Most of his scoring came off ball, off of the break, getting a off-ball screen for a three or to create off of the screen, or in a face-up / post-up. That would essentially be what Porter does, and Levine and Laurie's shooting would fit in seamlessly with Porter. Now, outside of MPJ, the Bulls also have the 23rd pick in the draft from the Nico trade, which makes me very happy because, as you should know, I hated Nico in Chicago with a passion. Anyways, they have the 23rd pick. If you look at this roster, after taking MPJ, they would have a starting lineup of Chris Dunn, Zach LaVine, Michael Porter Jr., Lauri Markkanen, and Robin Lopez. Now, I like Rolo, but he's nearing 30, not quite on the same timeline as the rest of this roster. So with the 22nd pick, the Bulls should take a center. Luckily, this draft class is so full of big man talent that there are bigs that would have gone in the lottery in last year's draft that are available this late in this year's draft. But this year, there is so much talent that they get overlooked. Mitchell Robinson is unfortunately moving up more and more in the mock drafts over the past few months. He's the main guy that I really want. I also really liked Robert Williams, who's going to be a good center despite being undersized, but he's not going to be available at 23. There is a chance that Mitchell drops. If not, Brandon McCoy would be a good option as well. Mitchell Robinson is a 7'1" center with a lot of rim protection ability as well as defensive switchability. And on offense, he has a solid mid-range jumper and he has the athleticism to be a run, jump, and dunk guy. McCoy is a 7-foot center that is more polished offensively than Robinson. McCoy has a face-up mid-range game, which means that he can get in the post, turn on his defender, take a jab, and pull up for a jumper in his defender's face and drain it. He knows how to play the post, and in college he shot threes occasionally, so in maybe a few seasons he will be able to take threes, at least from the corners. He's also a very athletic shot blocker and rebounder, but while McCoy is more polished, Robinson has more potential, and McCoy is going to struggle to defend outside of the paint. I would also like to see the Bulls trade Robin Lopez for a late first or an early second, and then draft Devonte Graham, a point guard that I am very high on. If you watch my Pelicans My GM, you already know about him, but if you don't, which you should be, Graham is a very good shooter at the point. He shot 41% from 3 on 7 attempts per game in his final year at Kansas. He's also a very good mid-range shooter. He's also a great playmaker, averaging over 7 assists a game in his senior year. If he was a freshman putting up the numbers that he does, 17.7 assists on 41% from 3, he would be a top 10 pick for sure. He was also the Big 12 Player of the Year. So that's who I would ideally like to see the Bulls leave the 2018 draft with. MPJ as a future franchise player, Robinson or McCoy as a potential starting center, and Devonte Graham as the Bulls' backup point guard. So I mentioned how Porter would fit with the team, but let's talk about how Graham and Robinson / McCoy would fit. Now, day one, McCoy or Robinson, let's just say Robinson for the rest of this. Robinson would probably come off of the bench behind Bobby Portis at the start, who did well last season at the center spot, but Robinson would fit right into the Bulls' offense because the starting lineup would have 4 guys out there that can shoot. Or at least in Dunn's case, you would have to at least guard him out there. So Robinson would be like the Clint Capella of this team, rolling to the basket, catching lobs, and grabbing offensive rebounds, while also being able to shoot the mid-range. And defensively, his role would be like Capella's, basically just protect the rim. As for Graham, he would be the main playmaker off of the bench, sharing that role a bit with Denzel Valentine. But the biggest thing that I like about having Graham is the dynamic of having him and Dunn as the 2 point guards. Because if there are times when the Bulls really need a three-pointer, Dunn can be subbed out for Graham for the shooting, and when the Bulls need to close out on defense, Dunn can be in for that. Really important in late game situations to have that kind of versatility. So you get the defense with Dunn and the shooting with Graham, while both are about equal at creating their own shots and creating for others. Alright, that awkward cut that you just saw was because, as you can hear from my voice, I'm recording this part a few days after I recorded the first chunk of this video, and I am sick now. So just so you know, the rest of this video will be being recorded with this voice. So the rotation would be Chris Dunn at point, solid offensive player and great defender. Zach LaVine, very good three-point shooter, amazing in transition, and is a solid shot creator. He has star potential. MPJ has superstar potential. Lauri Markkanen has star potential. Mitchell Robinson, rebounder and rim protector. Off of the bench, a backcourt of Devonte Graham and Denzel Valentine. Both are great shooters and are good playmakers. Either or can handle the ball while the other runs a three-point set. David Nwaba, who is a fantastic defender, amazing at transition, and even though he isn't the greatest three-point shooter, he attacks closeouts so well that it makes up for it, and he's really good at finishing at the rim. And Bobby Portis at center, who I believe will one day win Sixth Man of the Year at some point in his career. Portis had a breakout season this year, averaging 13.2 points and 6.8 rebounds, shooting 47% from the field and 36% from three. And he had plenty of stretches this year where he literally could not be stopped. The Bulls could potentially have a top 5 bench in 3 seasons, but you may have noticed that there is a position that I haven't mentioned yet, and that's power forward. That position is the one spot that I want the Bulls to sign a free agent for. The free agent that I have been eyeing all year is Jeremy Grant, who is a versatile combo forward who's a lockdown defender. He can handle guarding a 1 through 4 and sometimes even a 5. He's very athletic and has great defensive instincts. On offense, he is a poor shooter, but because of his speed, he can attack closeouts and finish inside. And he is fantastic on the break. I believe he could be coming to Chicago because 1, his brother plays for the team, and 2, the Thunder only play him about 20 minutes a game, so I don't think they value him that much, and with his youth and athleticism, he is the perfect fit with this roster. So that's what I want the Bulls to do in the 2018 offseason, and hopefully in a few years, fuck it, the Sixers are going to rule the East in a few years.